For the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, well, welcome to the October meeting of the Gloucester County Amateur Radio Club. The more observant of you have probably noticed I am not your president, Tony Starr. Louder. I didn't want to be too loud. How's this? That's okay. Okay, that's well. That sounds good to me, John. Anyway, Tony is at a business meeting tonight. I am your second chair, John Pierce, the vice president, fulfilling the only role that most vice presidents ever have in an organization, which is to run in a meeting when the president is out. Tony gave me about 18 hours worth of notice, so hopefully I won't make too many mistakes tonight, and you guys will forgive me if I do. So before getting into the meeting, I just wanted to comment on the unfortunate passing of Ray Martin, W2RM. Ray was a member of this club for many years. I only knew Ray a little bit, but I know many people knew him for a far longer period. He was a president in 1979. That's 40 years ago. And I know he was heavily involved in the negotiations to get the clubhouse and in building out the clubhouse and in furnishing a lot of stuff there. And from the comments that I've heard, he was a mentor and a friend to many people. And so I just wanted to mention it and thank him posthumously for all the good work he did for the club. So are there any additions? Are there any additions or correct? Can I go back? How's this? I'll try and talk real close. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Okay. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes that were printed in crosstalk? Anyone? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve? Chris, can I have a second? Lee, all in favor? Okay. Carl, you've got your job for another year. It looks like you just keep hitting 100% here. I don't know what it is. Yeah, just keep raising that hand, Carl. Are there any new members with us tonight? Anyone who's joined recently? We have, hey.
Frank, KD2, Zulu Hotel Alpha. Good evening.
Yeah, Frank, go ahead on Zoom, please.
Can you hear me?
Well, let me come back to you, okay? Because he can't hear you.
Okay.
Right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Frank.
This is Frank, KD2, Zulu Hotel Alpha. I joined a few months ago, new to this club.
Okay, welcome to the club. And I
Thank
should
you.
bring the mic over to you so you can be heard by everybody else.
Hi, my name is Gus Swartout, KC3 TGB. I live in Delaware. I went through the classes with Chris, and I'm a member of the club. I joined in July, I believe. And it's kind of far, but bit of a distance of a drive, but I make it when I can. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks to both of you guys for joining us this evening. Okay. We have 4 new members. Looks like none of them were here tonight. Let me see if I can read this. Tim Fury of Malika Hill with no call listed. Alex Rodriguez, KE3 AKK. Alex has been out a couple times at the clubhouse and been, already pretty active. Randy Testa, again, no call of Havertown, and Teng Zhu, KE8 BII from Newark. Teng came out to the clubhouse after the Hamfest and wandered around and got a tour and joined. He was a former, I think, vice president of the Michigan State Radio Club. So be interesting when he starts getting involved with this. Oh. Yeah. Okay, for those of you on Zoom, Tim and Randy are both students in Chris's technician class, so they've joined even in advance of becoming licensed. Can we have a member count, attendee count? 28 here. On Zoom. 14. Okay, thank you. All right, and treasurer's report.
Okay, treasurer's report. Budgeted items year to date. The total income of 9,933. And total expenses of 6,005. That's 6,005. For a net of plus 3,927. And money in all accounts, total money in all accounts is 26,209. I will give the Hamfest report. As you would suspect, we were down considerably. Could have been worse. If you compare it to last year, it's a little unfair because last year was a banner year. Last year we had raised the prices, and we had a big turnout. So in 2021 we had a net profit of 43.45, and in 2020 we net profit of 36.28. So this year the net profit was 25.55. That is 1790 less than last year and 1,073 less than 2020. I did not have a chance to count the tickets to see, exactly. You could roughly figure out how many, since it's $10 a ticket, you could figure out roughly how we were short. But anyway, the Hamfest, of course, it only rained a tiny bit during the Hamfest. But it just goes to show you, you got to be prepared for a rainy day. That's for sure. It was still a very, very, very good Hamfest, as we are known to put on. So the only thing we have as far as expenses, big expenses that haven't been paid yet, are half of our insurance bill. That's roughly $900, and the mowing bill will probably be roughly $1,000. So, any questions for the treasurer? Yes, the 26,000 is after paying for the HF. Actually, I'll include that as well. The HF tower replacement, I'm calling it the rebuild project, but the HF part of that project had the total for that as 9650. So just under 10,000 for the HF tower and antenna replacement. Even without already taken out, we still have 26,000 in the bank. So we have roughly 4,500 left of our money that we got from GoFundMe to go towards the VHF replacement, which will come in handy. Anyway, motion to accept the treasurer's report. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. You can mention that. I'll do the clubhouse report since we're going to start on reports. Now that the Hamfest is over, we'll be able to get back to working on the VHF room. Frank Romeo has already done a tremendous amount of work out there. The Frank had finished up the insulation between the studs. And we're planning on tomorrow picking up paneling and starting on getting it paneled in so that it would at least be a room that can be used, so to speak. But lots of work. There's still plenty of work outside to do. The HF project is still not completely done. We need to build and put up the 80 meter dipole, which will be, or should inverted V will be hanging off of the new HF tower. So we'll be out there. We'll need some help here and there. And otherwise, the clubhouse is in pretty good shape. All right, that's all for clubhouse.
All right, Club Nets. Who's got comments on Club Nets, Jim? 2 check-ins last night on and 4 last week. Okay. That's 10 meter net? Okay. 2 meter nets. Steve, we don't have a rover mic, do we? Okay. Okay. I'll just repeat what you're saying then.
Well, each week, we have 5 weeks, we have 60 check-ins. And on the Thursday night net, we averaged almost 13. The one night I wasn't there because we had the VE session. We had 51 check-ins the 4 nights I was there.
So about 12, 13 check-ins in most nets then.
Correct.
Okay. And the digital net, anyone running the digital, I was on that for a little bit. It looked like we're about 14 people there. So that's a good start to that. And that has moved to Zoom, by the way, just because it's so difficult to be talking on the radio on a net and then having to move to digital on the same radio to a different frequency and stuff like that. So that moved over to Zoom. I was on it on Monday night, and we'll be doing them on Zoom going forward from there. Okay. DX report. Tony would have done the DX report. Anybody doing good DX? Anything good to report? I guess the bands are dead, huh? All right. Nobody's owning up to anything. Contest report. Where was that? Belgium on CW. On what band? On what band? 20 meters. Okay. That's pretty good. Very nice. Okay. The CQDX contest, single sideband, is coming up in about 3 weekends. I have the date on one of my slides later on. And we're hoping to get the clubhouse open and the HF station ready for people to come down and work that station. You've got the nice radio in there. You've got a nice amplifier in there, and you got a bunch of really nice antennas. And this is supposed to be, from the guys who worked it, a really nice, easy DX contest to get into. So I'll be talking about that a little bit later, but hopefully we can get some interest to come down and work that from the clubhouse. Repeater, sorry.
First weekend of the EME
The
contest.
first weekend of the EME contest is when now?
2 weekends. It's 17th.
Like the 17th or the 18th. And they'll be working that with the satellite antennas. So we'll put out an announcement for that too. That's EME is pretty cool. I would really love to see that. So we'll put out an announcement as to when that's happening, and maybe you guys can come down and see some EME contacts as well. Okay, the repeater committee. Anything happening on the repeater committee?
Chris, 82CS, and I went over to the Woodard Tower last Wednesday. I took a climb up to the top with the adapter to go from the 7/16 DIN that's on the end of the hard line to a regular N connector and a new N jumper, hardline jumper with N connectors. We did some tests on the feed line, and it didn't look the way that I thought it should. Typically, if you put a 50 ohm load on the end of a piece of feed line and you check it from down at the bottom, you should have just a flat, 1-to-1 SWR, and we were not seeing that, which is very, very strange. The hard line is very unlikely to be damaged. It's about two inches in diameter. That's how big the feed line is for the going up for the repeaters. Has virtually zero loss, especially at that frequency at 2 meters. But we checked with the antenna hooked up, we checked the SWR and it seemed reasonable. Also, we checked the SWR on the 440 antenna, and that also seemed reasonable. So really had no choice but to, hook it up and see how it works out. But 2 meters was 1.6 or something like that. Not fantastic, but I think 440 was good. 1.2 something. So we'll have to see how the performance is. Again, I don't see how the hard line could be faulty. It doesn't seem likely, but again, we're not getting a flat 1-to-1 with a 50 ohm load on the end of the cable. So we will have to get a TDR next time we go out there and see if it shows any discontinuities or any impedance bumps or anything like that. That's all for repeater.
Okay, Education Committee. Chris, if you have more than a couple words, could you come up and use the mic so that I don't have to repeat it?
We've got the students now paying their fees in through the PayPal address that's been set up. Alan, you should see payments coming through on that. Classes are going fine. I've started practice test with all three. Well, I haven't started with the extras yet. That starts Friday night, practice test with them, but we're halfway through. This is at the halfway point on this session already. This week is the halfway point, so things are moving right along. But the fees are being paid. I see the notes coming through on PayPal on my email that they are being paid. So I told everybody what to do, and I'll get after those who don't pay. Let's see, I've got 5 techs, 4 general, and I want to say 6 or 7 extras. I forget. I think it's 7 extras.
Do we have a Hamfest coming up? I think the rain obviously scared off quite a few people. I had gone to the trouble of sending out 800 or 900 emails the day before the event, reminding people that the event was on, rain or shine, and we were having it. But I think next year we're going to change the flyer a little bit and emphasize the rain or shine aspect. The email that I sent out said, if you need extra pavilion space and it rains, we'll give you the pavilion space at no charge. That didn't seem to work for everybody. So we're going to have to come up with some other ideas as far as, getting people unafraid of rain. I mean, if we have a hurricane come up the coast, there's nothing we can do. But if we have a little rain coming up the coast like we did this time, which actually hardly materialized at all, it's still, I guess the rain clouds scared them off. But it did have an impact on our bottom line. So we're gonna try to learn from these incidents and make adjustments next year. We had outstanding support. Last minute, people just came in droves to help out. It was really great. So I sent thank you notes out to everybody that I knew had come to the Hamfest to support it. But yeah, we had great club support of the Hamfest this year, as we usually do.
I don't need a microphone. Oh, okay.
Well,
I don't understand why the vendors bail out so fast. I mean, you're watching a 1 hour session, and you come out and the vendors are all gone. They left and they only stayed about 45 minutes and then took off. Why?
let the record show that John asked why the vendors all left and nobody knows. I guess it was the rain. Right. Right. So the vendors packed up after all the new people stopped. Yeah. I'm just repeating for the Zoom people who can't hear what's going on. Yeah, I have that actually. So the next thing that I have, I'm going to move the technical committee to later because we have some slides for that, is the report from the Gloucester County Amateur Radio Foundation, which most of you remember is the 501c3 affiliate of the club that we set up for fundraising. And as we've mentioned before, we got a grant for I think $11,164 for VHF equipment. The board approved the purchase of that on Monday, and so those orders are going out this week, I would expect, John. So that equipment is going to be on its way whenever it can be on its way.
On the best way to operate the HF station during a contest is remote, because that way you can use the amplifier and have 1,500 watts available if you need it on CWFO. It's much easier to operate from home than it is to try and operate from local stations. But the amplifier isn't available when you're in the clubhouse.
Yeah, I think it will be available for the for this contest from the local station because we want people to be able to use that. So anyway, the other point to make, which isn't exactly the foundation information, but it does relate to grants, is that Ron handed us this check for $25,000 from the American Radio Relay League Foundation, which is for us to erect the new tower. And that will get deposited somewhere. I had a short conversation with the zoning person for Hanover Township, where there seems to be some confusion as to the maximum height requirements there. She was going to check with the zoning, with the inspector and get back to me. I haven't heard anything, so we're just going to see how that plays out. Constitution Committee. Ron, I believe you have some things. Nothing to report on the Constitution. Health and welfare, anything other than Ray Martin's? Yeah, Steve.
And Greg, W5PL, is going through health issues and he's going through chemo right now.
Oh, my. Okay, so Charlie is in the hospital and Greg is going through chemo for those of you guys on Zoom. Chris? All right, Jim Kincaid from Cumberland County, his wife has passed away, unfortunately. KC2JAX. Okay, any reports on fox hunts? Anything for fox hunt? Jim's not here? Okay. All right, I am all of a sudden seeing myself reconnecting to Zoom when I need to be on Zoom. All right, so technical committee is next, and give me a moment to get that queued up, please.
You'll park over here. You'll come in from 322, follow this into the guard shack, and they'll direct you to this parking area. From there, you can go down this green route and there's a flight of stairs and you go all the way around back, and we're in this tower. We're at the 5th floor in this tower right here. If you're in a wheelchair and have difficulty walking, and I know some of you do, the yellow route is all ramps. Now, there's 2 other things. I'm going to try to get a third guy there Saturday morning. Right here, there's a loading dock. We're going to see if we can get that door open and have everybody come in that door, and you'll just go right up the elevator. It'll make everything a whole lot easier. Worst case scenario, do you have the other?
Yeah, the next slide.
There's another map that I had sent.
There you
Oh,
go.
there you
There
go.
you go.
So on this map, here's the tower. Here's the museum right here. If you come in on Carpenter Street, I can't even see. Carpenter Street is between Wilson Avenue and Silver Avenue. You come in through the Carpenter Street entrance and you drive all the way down here. In this area here, there's street parking. It's free. There's street parking here. This lot is closed due to construction. But if people have a hard time walking, you can drive down the sidewalk right here, all the way down, right through here, and you can drop them off right at the back door, right at the entrance, and then take the elevator to the 5th floor. I don't know that you could park here on Saturday. I think if the parking areas are open, you probably can. If not, you'd have to go all the way back over here to this other parking area across the street near the guard shack. But as I say, we are going to be in this area here at the loading dock area and try to get you guys in on the side. There's just a small flight of steps right into the elevator and up to the 5th floor. So it's going to be a really nice time. RCA, I mean, I worked there for 25 years. My dad was there for 40 years. You could see the progression of like from a Victor talking machine, a crank up talking machine, to early radios that are battery powered, to electrical radios, to electrical phonographs, early TVs. We have broadcast equipment. And then, of course, RCA is also known for all its military equipment. We do have some samples to show. It'll be a really fun time. So I hope as many people as you can show up. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thanks for setting that up, Anthony. I think that'll be a, not often we get to do a road trip on a Tech Saturday. So, I wanted to mention the YouTube channel. There has always been a YouTube channel for the Gloucester County Amateur Radio Club, but we're going to try real hard to try to populate that with any types of presentation we do, including presentations tonight. So, right now, what's up there is some older videos, but also the video from the presentation that I did at last month's session and all 3 presentations that were done at the Hamfest. And we tried to do some editing and things like that. By the way, if there's anyone who's an expert on YouTube and doing edits and production and things like that and wants to get involved in helping out with this stuff, stick your hand up, send me an email and let me know, because this is another chance to get involved. And if you've got expertise there, we can probably make these things, better than they are. All we've done right now is done some basic edits and some headers and some stuff like that. But I'm sure that someone with some expertise can really improve this thing a lot. Here's the sign. For those of you who didn't come to the Hamfest and who haven't been to the clubhouse, and I hid the sign from last month's presentation because I wanted you to come out, but this is what it looks like. This is what Chris and Ron put together a couple of months ago. Much better than the other sign. It's got our frequency on it, our PL on it, and everything like that. And it's not embarrassing to drive down the road now to get to the clubhouse. This is the phone number for the clubhouse. The board voted to put a phone into the clubhouse several months ago, just so if you needed to call the clubhouse for any reason, you could. So if you're like trying to work remote HF and you can't get to HF and you want to find out whether somebody's on there, or if it's a Saturday but not a Tech Saturday and you want to find out if there's anybody down there, you can call the clubhouse. So, take out your cell phone, plug this in, or go write it down, or take a picture or a screenshot or something like that. There's almost always somebody at the clubhouse on Saturday mornings. So if you're looking for help on anything, if you want to come down and hang out, if you want to see what's going on, there's always something going on. Come on down there. There's always somebody there. Chris is always there, probably by 8. There's always somebody there by 9 or 10. We order in lunch from the Marino's pizza place, which is really good. And if you wonder whether anybody's there, here's the phone for the clubhouse, and you can call us and see whether anyone's. Of course, you can always call on the repeater, but we may not be listening to that. So anyway, there's the phone number for the clubhouse. We're setting up a Discord account or station or channel or whatever it is for technical discussions about amateur related topics. We had a Slack channel back a few years ago, and that got really heavily populated, and then it kind of got dropped. But we'd like the opportunity to have a place where there can be engagement on, LoRa, on WinLink, on anything you want to talk about. So we kind of set this up last Saturday. We're still figuring out how to do it, so we haven't opened it up to the whole world yet. We're trying to figure out the best way to make sure this is manageable. But if you're really interested in getting involved in some of the technical discussions we're having, if you got some projects you're working on and you want to be able to collaborate with other people, look for an announcement. Probably by next month, we'll have this ready to roll out to the general public. Slack has not had any messages for the last 90 days, so everything is basically timed out. Slack now says if it's over 90 days, it's gone. Yeah, so Slack is that was the 10,000 messages. So so if you haven't been to the HF room, take a look and see what Chris 82CS did down there. This is not the best high resolution picture that I could get, but Chris has really built out a heck of a test bench down there, and he's continuing to work on stuff. So if you have anything that you need to fix or build, especially some of the older stuff, because he's got tube testers and all kinds of stuff. And there's another bench to the right of that I didn't get a picture of, with a complete solder desolder station there with hot air, flux soldering and stuff like that. This is going to be a terrific asset for the club, for you guys that don't have all that stuff at home. So be aware of this. Come on down. We're going to do some Tech Saturday sessions on like how to use the scopes and how to use some of the test equipment. And I think it's going to be a terrific resource for the club. CQ Worldwide DX Contest. I mentioned this a little earlier. Save the date. We're going to try to have the clubhouse open and staffed at least from 10 to 2, hoping for an HF operator who can come down and help you operate these things. So if you're a new general and you haven't worked DX and you don't quite know how to do this stuff, this is a good time to come down. I'm not a DXer, but the guys who do this stuff say this is a really good, easy contest to get involved with. So save the date and come on down and have some fun with the radios down at the clubhouse. Upcoming educational sessions tonight. Al is going to talk about what it took to put together the new tower, how the old tower came down, what was wrong with it, all the stuff that had to get fixed on it, the new characteristics of the new antennas and all of that stuff. And then Tech Saturday is going to be over at the Rowan Museum. The RCA Museum at Rowan, as Anthony said. And then in November, Riley Hollingsworth, whose call I don't remember, but he's a former FCC commissioner, is going to come talk to us. And then the Tech Saturday for that, at this point, actually, all the HF antennas are up in operation. But next week, next Tech Saturday in November, we're going to actually focus on that. Al's going to be down there and he can actually show you what's going on. And then December, we're going to talk about 3D printing. Frank and I have to figure out exactly how we're going to prepare that, but by sometime in December, we're going to talk about have a sessions, probably Tech Saturday and also the Wednesday night session on 3D. And then when we get into January and thereafter, we'll have some other things. Our goal is to have really good material for each of the Wednesday night sessions and the Saturday sessions as well. The VHF station, I think I've already covered this. The equipment orders are in process. Discussions with the township about the tower have begun. And the new news, of course, is that we got the check from the ARRL Foundation. I also wanted to mention this again. There's Amazon has a function called Amazon Smile, where you can designate a charity, and that charity will get a ½ cent for every $1 you spend on Amazon, and it doesn't cost you anything. And if you designate the foundation for that money will go to the foundation, which buys things for the clubhouse. For example, the foundation is now going to pay for the Zoom account that we're going to be able to use for the club and for foundation activities. So you can use this QR code if you trust the QR code that some guy puts up on a screen and you want to shoot it and go there and spend your money on it. If you're a sane person, you won't do that. You'll actually go to smile.amazon.com and sign up. But if you do that, it doesn't cost you anything, and at least it might throw some money at the foundation. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. What Chris said is that you also have to go to smile.amazon.com. So I've done that on Internet Explorer when I click on, not Internet Explorer, on Chrome. stop laughing, John. It's been a long time. You know? Yeah, my shortcut goes to smile.amazon.com. So otherwise it won't work. So the last thing I found is I saw this cartoon at one point. No, I'm not sharing. Why am I not? When did I stop sharing? An unknown error occurred. Oh, I ain't doing this. All right. I had one moderately interesting little cartoon to throw at the end, which I will try to describe to you. Has the ubiquitous picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator with his gun aiming up in the air. And it says, killer robot from the future needs a telephone book to find Sarah Connor. Okay. I can see that was as humorous as it was to Al when I showed it to him earlier today. So. Oh, Wednesday night dinner. I forgot about that. Yeah, so this was an idea Frank had of having a dinner at the clubhouse on like the fourth Wednesday of the month. And we did it and it was great. We had probably 15 people down there. Everybody brought stuff or they went over to Marino's and they got stuff and there was no agenda. There was no, specific topic to be discussed. We just had a great time chatting and talking about all sorts of stuff. We fired up the HF station, made a few contacts and had a really good time. So we're going to try and make that a regular thing unless it runs into Thanksgiving or something like that. And so I'll put out an announcement for that once we figure out what the date is, and we'll hopefully make that a regular thing as well. Okay. Okay. Any questions or comments? I am no longer on Zoom. So if Jim, if you'd like to comment on Fox Hunt, you want to say anything? I can't tell whether he's coming in or not.
Yeah, hi, this is Jim. I don't know if people are able to hear. The fox hunt was from Frank and 3PU, and his family did a great job of hiding it in a place that was very difficult to find, partly because it was below ground level. We've written a small little blurb for the crosstalk. I think it's also showing up on our webpage if you want to read more. It was a great weather, good day, everyone, and we'll try and have another one before the year's out because it really is a lot of fun.
Oh, who found it, Jim? All right, Mark found it.
Mark, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, didn't Mark's grandmother find it first?
The truth comes out. Mark was expecting that we make it, asking whether it should be countywide. Apparently this was too easy for his grandmother. Jim, any thoughts on that?
Well, I didn't find it easy. I was there first, and I
You
even
mean his grandmother beat you?
Yeah, I had some cricket players even try and help me find it, and it was behind us. I
Wow.
was looking. It was in a ditch. I was looking near the tree line. Frank did a great job of fooling us that way.
All right. So Jim was cheating and got beaten by Mark's grandmother. Okay. Okay. Is there any old business? Old business. Okay. Is there new business other than the nomination slate of next year's officers, which I will read in just a moment? Okay. Carl is coming to the podium.
Yeah, since Bob KD2 NEC isn't here, I'm going to give some quick feedback on the Aries simulated emergency test. Oh.
I am
hold on
here.
1 second. Okay, we're taking a pause while Frank does something. Oh, you're trying to get the overhead up. Okay. Well, it's going to be a flow chart of how the event went, how it was organized and all that. So this took place.
Bob is on, Zoom.
I'm going to proceed anyway. We don't want to be here all night. Saturday the 1st, the simulated emergency test happened in the South Jersey ARRL section. Our fearless leader is Tom WB2 ALJ, our section emergency coordinator. And locally, we had there we go, the local net run by Mike, N2SRO, former club member, and Chris, AD2CS. They did a great job. Yes, not close enough? Good. Oh, good Lord, swallow the mic, huh? Okay. Well, we basically had another technical problem. No problem. I'll just say it. We had good net control operators, people, Prepperware. Well, I'm not running the slides. I'd use a magic lantern or something myself. Low tech works every time. Anyway, so we had people simulating damage in the county. Gary, WA3SVW, Charlie called in. He was in the hospital, but he checked in briefly anyway. Mike, N2WOQ, that's a mistype there. And another Mike, KG4JYA, who's a fairly new club member, participated too. And simulating being in a Red Cross shelter was Steve, W2SEF, over here. And basically, they were saying, I have something to report to Red Cross, or I have something to report to OEM. They tell the net control that. Net control would tell the person simulating OEM or Red Cross something was coming in, and that's how the traffic was passed. Very, very professionally, very well done, very orderly. The net control people kept it from being pandemonium. Adding to the complication is so these guys right here were our local area network right here in the county. We also had a wide area network going on the so be the Waterford Works repeater, where Bob KD2 NEC was sitting monitoring for situation injects like tornado approaching from the south and warning us. Well, actually, those injects didn't really happen. They were kind of something we were led to believe was going to be interesting, but it wasn't happening. But anyway, this is how we would keep in touch with what's happening in Salem County, Cumberland County, Camden County, all the surrounding areas. Skywarn fed into this, and there were supposed to be Mars stations on too, but the Mars operators apparently didn't inject anything. But anyway, this is the way we would handle emergency communications in Gloucester County. Very quickly, I wanted to say that a couple things happened for the first time in a good way, in that we sent video. No, we didn't send video. We sent pictures for the first time during the emergency drills. First of all, using WinLink for the first time, Mike KG4 JYI attached photos of simulated damage to some of the WinLink messages. What was good about this is I didn't have to sit there and receive the messages in real time. Mike could upload these to the station that Jonathan sent up at the clubhouse. And then at my relative leisure, I could go and pick up these messages with with photos that Mike sent. And then the other big learning for me was Gary is a stickler for television, I guess being a former broadcast engineer. He's big on slow scan TV. And Gary came up with an app, I guess he talked about it on his digital net, to do slow scan TV over, well, from your phone. So iPhones are great, right? I don't like them in emergency situations because the phone network goes down. But what Gary pointed out is that you can take a picture with your cell phone and you can put a slow scan TV app on your phone or your computer. And you can basically, the slow scan app converts the picture to tones, and you can hold the microphone of your radio. If you're out in your car, taking pictures, you find something, you hold the microphone of your radio to your phone. It plays the tone over your radio, and some other station will receive the picture. Very low-tech way of doing this. It's slow scan resolution. It's not really very good compared to what we're used to. But in an emergency, if you can't get a picture across any other way, there you go. So that's actually something I learned. I thought it was all nonsense until Gary actually showed what we could do with it. So I'm wrapping it up right now. In conclusion, we had 10 volunteers. 2 sort of couldn't do it, but 8 were very active in doing this. We passed 44 formal messages. So we had practice doing this. We had practice using the new club's WinLink station. And we actually tried sending and succeeded sending pictures over amateur radio for the first time, I think, in simulated emergency tests that we've done in this county. So that is it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Carl. Any other new business before we break? Herb, thank you.
The MS Bike Ride had 167 hams show up, a record for most recent years. I wanted to say thank you from everybody that showed up and worked that event. It was a great event up until the thunderstorm at 3:30, I think. But during cleanup, but everybody else was pretty much home by then. They're going to have it next year, and you're going to get an email. Dig deep. They're asking me to fly back and drive a SAG van. We'll see what September brings. It's September 30th next year, a week later. So it should be a little cooler, but it was very cold this year. Thanks.
And Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, John. And just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Carl was saying. I think he was, I told Carl earlier that I was going to have company, but the company has left. Anyway, I just wanted to, and he did a great job of acknowledging all the members of the set team. I just wanted to also mention Charlie. He desperately wanted to participate, but wound up back in the hospital. So, we had a good conversation about that. So it's good. Everybody did a great job. We got a high score, very high, higher than I ever expected. And this should put us at the top of the section, the 9 counties in the South Jersey section. So we'll see how we compare to some of them. Not that I'm trying to turn this into a competition, but it's always nice to be recognized. So anyway, that's it. Carl did a great job of describing the set and the different positions of the set. Everyone did a great job. We're all proud of them, and they deserve a round of applause. So clap, clap. I'll turn it back to you, John. This is Bob. Going back to you.
Thanks, Bob. Okay, the last piece of business then is to list the nominations for 2023 officers and directors. The nominating committee puts this list together. The nominating committee is, as I recall, composed of the past presidents and the 2 directors whose terms are expiring. Okay, so those are the people who have put this list together. These nominations get read at this meeting, and they get read at the November meeting. And then there's a vote at the December meeting. If there are any other nominations, anyone can be nominated from the floor, can nominate themselves from the floor. So anytime between now and basically December, if you choose to run for any of the officer or open director positions, you make yourself known probably to the, I would say to the corresponding secretary, and that would mean we would have an election. Without an election, these people just end up being next year's officers. So the nomination slate for president is myself. For vice president is Ron Block, NR2B. Ron, stick your hand up just so everybody knows who you are. Treasurer, nobody else wants to do it, is Al. Recording secretary, done such a phenomenal job that everyone's afraid to take that position, is Carl, who's busily writing down. Corresponding secretary will be Frank Romeo, N3PUU, who will be new to the board and is a welcome addition. And then there are 2 director spots that are open. One is going to Jim Wright, N2GXJ. Jim has been with the club since forever and was a former president. And the other is Chris Prioli, AD2CS, who is, I found recently, a relatively new ham, but has just come on like gangbusters into the club and is doing all sorts of wonderful stuff. And then there's 1 trustee slot open, and that's going to, the nominee for that, I should say, is John O'Connell, K2 QA. So those are the nominations for basically the open club leadership spots. And as I said, anyone who chooses to run for those positions can make themselves known. And if so, there will be an election for that. And again, we'll read these again in November, and we will have an election if necessary in December. So, any questions or comments? Are there any nominations for any of these positions at this time? Okay, you get another shot in November. All right, right. That, you know, Carl does a really good job. So, okay, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? We'll take a short break, and then we'll get into Al's presentation. Chris moved. Second. Somebody put your hand up. Okay, Ron. Anyone opposed? Okay, 10 minutes and we'll be back.
All right, we're going to get started here. Yep. Okay. All right. This is going to be a bit of a free form presentation here. It's going to condense a lot of work into a very short program. So we got right to work on looking for a new tower. Obviously, the towers were no match for a EF3 tornado. Possibly if the tower had been cranked down, it might have survived, but that's neither here nor there. We did have some it did have quite a antenna load on it. This tower, the old tower, was a 54-foot heavy duty tower. It was rated for 45 square feet of wind load. So it was rated to carry quite a bit of antenna. And we did have quite a bit of antenna up there. The boom is sticking up, you know, in the air. The boom was, you know, of course, it just happened to be pointing directly into the ground, the boom there. And so it was quite a bit of effort to get that off of there, and to me and Frank and I, we had to cut off the tower where it's folded over there up at the top there, and pull on it with his truck and pull it away. And so the antenna we had up there was it had 4 bands on it. It had 10, 15, 20, and 40 meters. It had 2 elements on 40, 3 on 20, 4 on 15, and 5 on 10. And that is basically exactly what we replaced this antenna with. We had another antenna above the big antenna that covered 17 and 12. So it was quite a loss. You can see there the picture on the right up at the top, how the metal's just twisted and mangled. It you know, makes it look like the metal was made out of butter, but it's actually very strong steel. Okay, so the tower got blown down September the 1st at our Hamfest. The very next week, we ran into a ham that was selling a tower, and amazingly enough, it was the same manufacturer and it fit on the base that we already have. So that was a no-brainer. We saved a tremendous amount of money by being able to use the existing base. The base that's in the concrete. The new tower is a LM470. It is the same exact tower, except it has 1 more section to make it a 70-footer instead of a 54-footer. So the base is exactly the same, and the first 3 sections from the bottom up are the same. It just has one extra section, a fourth 25-foot section to make it a 70-foot tower. So these are crank-up towers. We had Tony, Tony Starr donated his heavy-duty pickup and the rental of this trailer you see. He donated that to the cause. This is sort of an after picture. That's just a shot of the temporary, actually somewhat permanent temporary antenna. Luckily, I had my tower trailer available, so we put that up with a small HF antenna on it, and that was up for a year, so it was somewhat permanent. But we were able to have the HF station on the air with the tower trailer. You can continue. Next one. Okay. Luckily, Frank has a big honking impact wrench with great big sockets to get those rusty bolts off that had been in there for probably 20 something years, to get the old tower off the base there. Go ahead, next one. And once we got the bolts out, then we used the lowering fixture to lower it, horizontal and remove it. Then we had to cut it apart with a Sawzall there. All right. Okay, repairs to the new tower. Okay, so the new tower, as I said, needed some work. The picture on the left shows one of the diagonal braces was broken off from the leg of the tower. And on the right, you're seeing where the cables, the lifting cables, actually cut into where they're rubbing against parts of the tower. There was quite a few rungs that had, grooves cut in them like that. We had club member Chris Kelly, KC2PC, was nice. He's a retired welder. And he spent quite a few hours. I think the next picture shows, yeah, there he is. He spent quite a few hours, filling in those grooves and fixing the bracing that had come loose. And luckily, Frank had the welder there to bring out for Chris to use. As I mentioned, there's 11 pulleys. That's just a picture of 2 of them there. So all the pulleys, yeah, you can show the one with the bearing there. All the pulleys have bearings in them that we replaced. They're just pressed fit. There you can see the dimples where you just hit it with a, you hit the thing with a center punch to kind of hold the bearing. You have to hit, use a hammer to get the bearings in there. They're just press fit in there, but they are sealed. They're sealed bearings, and they're very special. This is not some run-of-the-mill bearing you can get for real cheap on eBay. They are a very specific aircraft bearing. The hub of the bearing sticks out further than the race, the outer race, because if you go back one slide, because as you can see, the pulleys are down inside of metal. There's metal on both sides of the pulleys with a bolt through. So obviously you have to have the hub sticking out a little further. Otherwise, when you clamp the bolt down, it would just clamp the pulley in between the steel and it wouldn't be able to turn. So we managed to get all the new bearings, and amazingly enough, Fazio's actually had some of those bearings. I was able to get them for considerably less than, the typical. They were typically $50 a piece. I got them, I think, for a roughly $30 a piece for the bearings. One of the pulleys was, one of the actual aluminum pulleys was damaged beyond repair. So Frank found a company that does custom pulleys, and we were able to get just a single pulley custom cut for $80, which is a pretty good price. That is a picture of the crimp for the cables. All the cables had to be replaced. There's 6 cables that have to be made. Those crimps are made out of copper. They're tin plated copper. And the crimp handles, I didn't get a picture of the tools, but the crimper is about 3 feet long, the handles, and even at that length, it takes considerable effort to crimp that connector there. Believe me, they will not come out of there. I believe they're rated that the cable will break before they would slip through that crimp connection there. So there's a picture off the website of you can see the 4 sections. If you go to the next slide, I think there is the specifications. The wind loading, they're claiming that it'll support an antenna with 24 square foot of wind load at a basic wind speed of 100 miles an hour. I find that very hard to believe. That's, even if it said 80 miles an hour, I think I would be a little suspicious, but that's what's on their website. And it says that the tower can handle 450 pounds of antenna. The tower itself weighs 1,200 pounds with 4 20-foot sections. So next slide. Thank goodness it is not a hand crank tower, or we would be in trouble. Comes with a motor. We have to do a little work on we have to get power. We don't have any power run out to the base of the tower yet. We have to get power out there. And we have to get limit switches for bottom and top limit switches. And, but it works quite well. It's very smooth. It has no trouble, going up and down. This tower has being that it's motorized, it has a feature called positive pull down. If you look at the drum there, there's one little tiny roll of cable on the left, and then there's the wider roll of cable on the right. Well, when you put the antenna up, when you put the tower up, the roll on the left gets bigger and the roll on the right gets smaller. Basically, you have one cable to pull down and one cable to pull up. The reason you need a pull down cable is if you were to put that down, say if it was a bit windy or something caused the tower to snag a bit, if you didn't have the positive pull down, the motor would just keep unwinding cable and the tower would be stuck. Well, guess what happens if the tower decides to come unstuck? If you have a bunch of slack in the cable, it would come, flying down rather quickly. So normally the gravity is enough to bring the tower down, but obviously for safety's sake, this has a cable that actually pulls the tower down. Next slide. We're putting the rotator in. Club member Eric Morris, N2BRJ, was graciously donated a brand new Yaesu 2800 heavy duty rotator and rotator cable. We got just the rotator motor. We did not get the Yaesu control box, which we'll talk about later. The problem with the Yaesu control box is it does not have a computer control connection. And if you look up the price they want for yet another box that you have to hook up, to make it so you can computer control it, it's another $500. So that is, I don't know why they even have it for sale. I can't imagine they sell too many of them. So there's the rotor plate with the rotator and with the mast. I don't have a picture of the thrust bearing. We got a brand new 2-inch thrust bearing at the top from Fazio's. Next slide. Okay, so luckily we have it's called the lifting fixture. We already had the lifting fixture and we got another one when we got the new tower. So we have a spare lifting fixture, but the lifting fixture allows you to, raise the tower from horizontal to vertical relatively easily with a hand crank winch. So there we are, cranking it from horizontal to vertical. And there it is on the left, finally got it vertical. And there it is on the right, extended to the full 70 feet. We had to go back. At that time, we only had a couple of bolts holding it. Me and Frank later put the entire complement of 5 bolts in each leg. That tower will never come on. It's got 5 3/4-inch bolts in each leg, which is a bit overkill. It will not come off of that base. The whole base will come out of the ground before the bolts break. Okay, next slide. All right, the tower did not come with a very important item, is coax arms. Since this is a crank up tower, obviously you cannot have your coax permanently attached to the tower because you wouldn't be able to raise it or lower it. So there is a company, I think it's KF7P Ironworks, that makes these a very nice set of 4. You can see the coax arms. Notice the top coax arm has a hemispherical curved part to it that allows your cable to have a nice support coming off the top of the tower so that it isn't, crimping the cable with a real sharp 90-degree bend. It has a nice arc to it. And then the other 3 arms, the loops you see there, the loops are open, so you don't have to thread the coax down through the loops. It can go in through the side of the loops. So that keeps your coax from getting out of control with the wind. Once you're fully extended, there's about 20 feet between those coax arms, and it'll keep the coax from getting blown all over the place. And it also, another reason you have that is it keeps the coax from getting caught up in the tower. The last thing you want is when you're lowering your tower, you don't want the coax to get caught in the tower and get crunched and get damaged. So that's what those arms are for. Next. Okay, the antenna. All right, so here's a picture of the antenna. This is a JK antennas. They call it a mid-tri 40. It's a tri-bander with 2 elements added on 40. So it's the same basic antenna as the old one, but the way that he has the elements on the boom there, the boom is much shorter, which means there's much less load on the tower. The old antenna, the boom was almost 40 feet long. This boom is only 26 feet long. So this antenna, they call it a multi-monoband antenna. This is all the new antenna. They seem to have gotten away from trapped antennas. A lot of you, of course, remember, trapped tri-banders using traps to allow you to have different bands. Well, these antennas have no traps. They have basically multiple monoband antennas stacked on one boom. and I don't know how the hell they do it without the antennas, without each band, you know, unfavorably reacting with another band, but I'd like to look into that more. That'd be very interesting. But for instance, if you see the 40-meter element that is towards the right, not the one on the left, the one more towards the right. I mean, that 40-meter element is basically blocking all of the other elements. You would think that, you know, the other elements wouldn't even be able to work with that 40-meter element smack dab in the middle there. Okay, the next slide shows, there you go. There's the two, you see the two 40-meter elements. They have loading coils on them, which allows them to shorten the elements a bit. That being said, the elements are almost 50 feet long, each of those 40-meter elements. Okay, next slide will show you 20 meters. As you can see, you have 3 elements on 20. Next slide is 15 meters. You have 4 elements on 15. And the next slide is 10 meters. You can see you have 5 elements on 10. So the gain goes up as you go up in frequency. This particular antenna is extremely well made and extremely well machined. You can see a piece of that's a boom splice. That's a piece that splices the 2-inch boom together. That piece is a 1/4 inch thick, the splice piece there. Next slide. Yeah, there you go. You can see it's a 1/4 inch thick splice. You can see it, there it is inserted on the right there, and inserted into the 2-inch boom, which is in itself 1/8 inch thick. So everything on the antenna was definitely made to survive. There's no, all of the hardware is, you know, super high quality stainless steel. Next slide. There is a picture of the, on the left, that is how the elements attach to the boom. They have plastic blocks. You can see on the bottom side of that plate, you can just see the black plastic blocks holding the element. The elements are all insulated from the boom, and then the plate, the actual element plate has machined. You can see the clamps are machined clamps that have a very tight fit to the boom, so they don't have to be very tight before, and they will not slip on the boom. Where I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with where you have just a U-bolt. If you had just a U-bolt holding that element, much more likely to slip on the boom. Those once you tighten those clamps down, they absolutely will not slip. On the right there, you can see the boom to mast plate. It's got 4 gigantic clamps holding the boom to the mast plate, and then it also has 4 big fat U-bolts that hold the antenna to the mast. That's just a different, you're looking on the right there, that's the 40-meter reflector. That element, down at the bottom, you can see the, you know, the round part of the element. That is almost 2 inches in diameter, that intersection of the 40-meter element. It's as big as most people use for a mast to put an antenna on. Next slide. It's hard to really, unless you were out there and saw how big this antenna is, it's hard to describe just how big it is. Even these pictures really don't do it justice. You can see on the left, Frank's hand is right next to one of the loading coils. The loading coils were made out of 3/16 solid aluminum rod, you know, wound into a coil and then heliarc welded to terminations. To say that it's a lot of tubing, it would be an understatement. This is not a project for beginners. Many hours of putting, you know, telescoping tubing together. Next slide. it's recommended to use Noalox or some other anti-seize compound, antioxidant compound. You're supposed to use that wherever your aluminum slides into another piece of aluminum, and also particularly on stainless. If you're using stainless hardware, if you don't use a lube on that, you're more than likely it's going to seize up on you, either when you're putting it together or even worse when you're trying to take it apart. So every stainless bolt had some of that grease on it, that Noalox grease, so that it went together properly and can be taken apart if need be in the future. There's a picture on the right of the whole antenna. Again, it's sort of hard to judge how big it is. It's like I said, the boom is 26 feet long. The 40-meter elements are almost 50 feet long. And the antenna weighs about 170 pounds. So it's not a lightweight. All right, next picture. I think we're getting to specifications. Okay. Real quickly, there's a quick, shows you the number of elements. Notice the active boom length. That shows you how much of the boom is being used for a given band. And you can see that all 4 bands use pretty much, 20 feet out of the 26 foot of boom. So very good boom utilization. And there's your gain figures, your front to back ratio. It gives you your 2-to-1 bandwidth and your 1.5 to 1 bandwidth. And gives you your max element length. As you can see, 20 meters is 36 foot long element. And 40 meters is 47 and a half. John Hill said that he was able to, the antenna tuner in the amplifier, the HF amplifier, was able to tune the entire bands. I don't know. That seems, it didn't look good. 10 meters is a very wide band, and when we looked at the SWR, once you got to 29 megahertz, the SWR went through the roof. And of course, 40 meters is difficult to get a good match across the entire band. Next slide. Well, here's the SWR curves that he shows that on his website. They're a little. I don't know that I need to talk to him about the 40 meter, because we have a dip. We have a dip like that, but it doesn't look that good. It doesn't go down near to 1-to-1. And 10 meters, that graph is not showing the entire band. That graph stops at 28.75. Next slide. And 15 and 20 meters, it's good across the both of the entire bands. All right, next. Okay, now the fun part, getting that thing up. Go back one there, the truck, the rear of the truck. So I use this setup when we put the other gigantic antenna up. It's just a run-of-the-mill 12-volt winch, and I have it a homemade coupler that goes into my trailer hitch coupler. Remember, we're not lifting, a ton here. It's, it's only 200 pounds, but still, it's nice to have plenty of power. Next slide. So the antenna, we took a piece of one of the elements off so that we could have a little more room to work with, to bring the boom all the way in close to the tower, so we can lift it, basically straight up. Up at the top, I have a bracket on the mast with a big pulley, a great big pulley block up at the top. So the cable goes from the antenna up to the pulley block and then down to the truck, which is off to the right out of the picture there in the right-hand picture. Okay, next picture. So we had some difficulty in the fact that the antenna is not, the attachment point for the antenna is not at the physical balance point of the antenna. So we had to mess around for a while, trying to figure out how we could get it attached to lift it. And we actually had to put a rope on it and have somebody pull down on the, in this picture, pull down on the right-hand side of the antenna to keep it level. Because of the 40-meter reflector way out there on the left side of the antenna, that it was, leaning, it wanted to tip, down considerably. I mean, we had to pull down on the light side of the antenna quite a bit to keep it level. So we did, it went straight up, pretty trouble-free. It wasn't too bad getting the U-bolts in. Oh, I made a shelf. I used a big piece of angle, and I made a shelf so that once the antenna got up there, it had something to sit on while I put the U-bolts in. Otherwise, you'd have this antenna, basically flopping around while you're trying to fumble around with U-bolts and nuts. So I made a piece of angle that I clamped to the mast for it to sit on, and that helped greatly. Next slide, you can see under the antenna there that there's the piece of angle, and you can see above my head there the pulley that's also on a piece of angle. The antenna has two feed lines that come off of it. The 40-meter feed line you can see on the right, and the 10-meter there, the tri-bander cable comes just to the left of where I am on the tower there. The antenna has a overhead cable support, which it absolutely has to have. That's not in that picture. I don't know if there's a next picture that has, no, you really can't see it. There's an overhead cable support to, because the boom would be sagging down without it, especially on the left hand, the rear of the antenna. So with those cables, you're able to get the boom nice and straight. It's deceiving in that picture, how big the antenna is once you get it up in the air. That's up at the full 70 feet right there. What's the next slide now? Okay. Instead of the Yaesu box, which I said they wanted $500 for, this box is a very popular box. It will run just about any rotator on the planet. It's a, basically it's a universal rotator control box, which gives you a ton of features, allows you to connect to the computer. It gives you point and shoot. You can see the knob there with the degree readouts on it. Let's say you wanted to go to 30 degrees, you just grab the knob, turn it to 30. After a few seconds, the box will turn the antenna to 30. But you don't have to, fool with it. It'll automatically just turn it to 30 and bring it to a stop. Other features which are very useful are it has the speed ramps up and ramps down, which you need to do when you have a great big heavy antenna. You don't want the thing to stop like abruptly, and that this box starts up gradually and slows down when it gets near the end point. It does that automatically. And another thing is it will not allow you to reverse direction without a 5-second delay. You can imagine how bad that would be for the rotator and the tower if you attempted to instantly reverse direction. This rotator, with the Yaesu rotator, you can go more than 360 degrees. You can go 450 degrees total. So we have it set for a south stop, which means when you go all the way counterclockwise to 180, that's where you will stop at 180 going counterclockwise. Now, when you go clockwise, you can go all the way around to 180, but you can continue clockwise another 90 degrees over to 270, which sometimes comes in handy. You know how it is when you're when you're trying to work somebody and you're up against the stop and you got to go all the way back around. In this case, a lot of times you can negate having to go all the way back around to the other side. Next slide. This is a remote antenna switch, which is mounted on the tower. This will allow us to, instead of having to have 3 or 4 coaxes coming down the tower, we only have to have 1 coming down the tower. The antenna, the beam has 2 coaxes coming off of it, and we will have an 80-meter dipole also. 80-meter inverted V will also be on the tower, so we'll have, that would be 3 coaxes. So rather than having to run 3 coaxes down the tower, we only have to run 1 down the tower. And nicely enough, the existing control box that John Hill put together, the existing computer controlled switch box worked. We just hooked it right up to this switch and it works fine. We didn't have to use the box in the picture there. We didn't have to use that box. We just kept the same box that we already have so that the computer can switch the proper antenna when you change bands on the remote station. I think that might be it. I have the breakdown. Here's the breakdown of the costs. I subtotaled the tower just to show you that even with all of the refurb that we did on the tower, it was only about $4,200 for the tower. That tower new costs $11,500, and that's without shipping. You could easily probably add another 1,000 for shipping. So we have, obviously it's not a new tower, but it's got all new hardware on it. And I forgot to mention, I spray painted that entire tower by hand with cans of spray paint. And let me tell you, I thought I was not going to get the feeling back in my pointer finger. I should have got one of those triggers that you put on a can. I used 10 cans of cold galvanizing spray to, spray that whole tower by hand. As you can imagine, it took hours and hours and hours to get every nook and cranny. So the tower, all the stuff related to the tower was $4,200. And then all of the other stuff, the antennas, the controllers, and also we ordered a 500-foot roll of coax, even though we only need like 100. No sense in just ordering 100. And we did get 150 foot of that flex weave, 12-gauge flex weave antenna wire for the 80-meter dipole and other various connectors and stuff. So the whole project came out to under 10,000, roughly 9,600. And of course, that doesn't account for massive amounts of volunteer labor and other donations of time and equipment. But we do have the tools. As I mentioned, the club owns the cable cutters and the crimpers that can do heavy cable. I believe, what is it? It'll do 5/16, 3/16, and a quarter, I think, maybe even 3/8 crimps, as well as cut cable. So they're available if somebody ever needs to do cabling. There's still some work to do to finish up out there. Need to get the the power run out there for the motor And we might at some point be able to raise it and lower it over the internet. So you don't actually physically have to run out there if there's ever a windstorm. So obviously you don't want to run it up and down any more than you really have to. That being said, I don't want the thing to get blown down. So right now it is down because last Sunday they had a severe weather possibility, and then we had the remnants of the hurricane come up. So it's been down for the past week. I don't think it has to come down unless winds are forecast to be over 50 miles an hour. So the performance should be spectacular, especially on 40 meters. Now that before the 40 meter, it was up at 54 feet. Now it's up at 70 feet. So it should really be tremendous on 40, and it'll be also very good on the other bands. As I mentioned, the gain goes up as you go up in frequency. So the bandwidth will get narrower as you, or the pointing width of the antenna will get narrower as you go up in frequency. You do not have to be, dead on. Like if a DX country is at 50, it doesn't really matter. You can be plus or minus, 5 or 10 degrees isn't going to make a big difference. Well, hopefully I didn't bore you to death. Any questions? Comments? Labor. Yeah, that would be many thousands of dollars. Actually, that rotator can turn pretty darn quick. I have it, you can set the min and max speed. I have it set at 8 out of 10, and it's pretty fast. I mean, I think it'll do 360 in a minute, no more than a minute. Yeah, you can. Yes, it very smoothly starts up and slows down. So when you're turning it, if you're out there turning it manually using the push buttons, you actually have to let up about 5 to 10 degrees before it gets to where you want it, because then it still has to coast and slow down a little bit. So, but that, we now have a, very high performance HF setup out there, and I hope everybody will take advantage of it. Thanks, everybody.